My name is Christie Grace, and I'd like to extend a warm West Coast welcome to each of you. I am so excited to have my very special guest, the amazing Sheila Jordan, joining us today. Master of vocal improvisation, we're going to explore the art of staying present to what is, letting go and going with the flow. What that means in the teacher-student dynamic, that relationship also with the bass vocal dynamic in pre and after performance and in day-to-day life. We'll talk about the origins of her signature turning point song, Crossing Over. Here's some of Sheila's key life lessons and primary self-love building blocks. And we'll compare notes on some of COVID's challenges and opportunities. So let's dive in. Sheila Jordan is an American jazz singer and songwriter with a spiritual messenger of love, wisdom, and joy. A young at heart 91 years old, Sheila Jeanette Dawson, nicknamed Jeannie as a child, was born on November 18th, 1928, the same day as Mickey Mouse. The great-granddaughter of Queen Aliquippa, Queen of the Seneca Nation, Sheila is a legendary international jazz singer, a treasured performer, recording artist, beloved educator, and a devoted lifetime jazz ambassador. Her many awards include the highest honor in jazz, the National Endowment for the Arts 2012 NEA Jazz Master Award, and the NEA Lifetime Honors Award. And in 2018, the 8th Satchmo Award, the Mary Lou Williams Women in Jazz for Lifetime of Service Award, and the International Association for Jazz Education, the IAJE Humanitarian Award, to name just a few. A fantastic, supportive, and charismatic teacher, Sheila has mentored and inspired thousands of students, including myself and many of my jazz friends. Sheila Jordan was nicknamed Lady Bird. Why? Because of her close relationship with the legendary jazz saxophonist, bebop pioneer and master Charlie Parker, nicknamed Bird, who she just told me is having his anniversary birthday coming up this month on August 29th. Charlie often introduced Sheila as the singer with the $1 million ears. A remarkable multi-dimensional woman, mentor, and dear friend, I am so honored to introduce and welcome my hero, Sheila Jordan. Thank you, Sheila, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great honor for me, and to see you, gosh, you're like, a good friend. So to be interviewed by a good friend is really nice. So I thank you very much. It's a joy to be here.
Oh, thank you. And, it's really amazing how we started talking about this idea quite a while ago, and a lot of life has happened in between there.
Yeah.
And so, I so appreciate that your flexibility so that we could make this happen today. In particular, I want to talk about your large reach as an educator. Like, for instance, you began in 1978 at New York City College, right?
Yes.
And then later, and I know that you're a faculty member at Jazz in July at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And then also, right, you're a visiting professor at Stanford University, is that correct?
Well, yes, I was, but I also started a workshop later after Jazz in July. After I was doing that, which I'm still doing when we can do it. I started a workshop at the Vermont Jazz Center.
Right.
And so I've been up there also. Not this year because, everything's offline. What do you call it? Online, because we can't be in person.
Right.
But the thing that happened to me was years ago in 1978, I was invited up to City College in New York City to do a concert. Eddie Summerlin, who was the head of the jazz department, invited me And one of the teachers up there, and who was also underneath, like would be next in line for the head of the department, was John Lewis, who was with the Modern Jazz Quartet. So it was that John Lewis and Eddie Summerlin. So I did this concert up there, and when it was finished, they really liked it. The kids liked it. They were very receptive. And the classical teacher, Janet Steele, was there. So after the concert was over, John Lewis said, we need somebody like you to come up and teach. I said, teach? Teach what? I said, I don't have a degree in education to be a teacher. I mean, yeah, I went through high school, and I've been singing since I was like 17. I mean, as far as professionally, but I don't have an education, so I couldn't possibly teach. I have no clue what to teach. And John said, teach what you know, teach what you do.
Beautiful.
And the classical teacher, Janet Steele, said, we need you, Sheila. She said, I really think you should come up and do this. Now, at that time, Christie, there were no workshops for singers, jazz.
Right.
Jazz workshops. So I believe, I'm not sure, I'm not going to say definitely, but I believe I started the first workshop in the United States. I believe the workshop that I did for City College for jazz singing now, not just singing, that's something else, of course. There were all kind of workshops for singing. But
Right.
as far as jazz singing, I believe that I started the first workshop in 1978 at City College, and that's thanks to Eddie Summerlin and John Lewis.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's remarkable. And to think that, to teach what you know, how did you begin to teach what you know? Because what you know is innate.
Yeah, well, as a performance, what to do and what not to do. So I started out with the kids as, that they should pick a song, work on a song that they really like, not cause they thought, it'd be accepted, but if they didn't like it, they were going to sing it anyway. I said, no, 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 no. I want you to get a song that you really love, that you really can identify with, and that's what we're going to work on.
I remember how much you emphasized that, and I have to say that it really was a game changer for me, because I'm dominantly an ear musician as well, and I did learn most of the songs that I learned, from other recordings and things, and it really was, kind of like a hit on the side of the head because how can you find your own voice, right? How can you find your own voice when you're actually, and also the whole thing of like, if you're learning a song and you're not following and you're singing chords that aren't even in the song, it's like you're not only honoring the form of the tune or the composer, you're also not able to really delve into the story, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So for instance, like when I say relate it to a metaphor of life, I think about how each one of us, we start our day and we say, okay, this is like, we have our day timer or whatever it is we use, our calendar, and we say, this is what I'm going to do with my day to day. This is my form, sort of like in jazz form, right? We won't go into the details because a lot of people don't know about that, but there is an actual form of course, and that's what you teach. And in our lives, it's the same way, right? We know, okay, we're going to do this and that, and because we do know that, then it's like whatever life throws at us, whatever curveballs happen, then we're able to still sustain and maintain ourselves. What would you say about that in your own life? Yes, about teaching, but also about your own life.
I would say, I'm going to say this, just going back for a minute. First of all, I'm not saying don't listen to singers. I'm not telling my students not to listen to singers. By all means, listen to singers. You'll be encouraged, and But what I'm saying is, don't learn a tune from the singer. Like, Who's going to sing with the emotion of Billie Holiday? Okay? Who's going to have the voice of Sarah Vaughan? Some will, but still. So she's all over the place when she's singing a song, you know, and not anywhere near where that song goes a lot of times. And who's going to scat like Ella Fitzgerald? She's the greatest scatter still for me. So all I'm saying is be encouraged by the singers, but don't learn the songs from the singers. You like a song they sing, find that song, the original lead sheet on it, so you can find out exactly the way it was written, note for note. That's how you learn it. And just be inspired by those incredible singers. But don't try to, you're not going to sing like them. What are you kidding me? You know, that's the way they sing. You
Right.
have your story to tell. So you tell your story. And it's working, you know. They're sort of getting it, you know, but it takes time.
Yeah, well, thanks for clarifying that. And yes, because of course, like we can be influenced by
Uh-huh.
other people, but to really be able to draw, be able to find one's own voice. That's really what is the joy of the process, right? Is like
Absolutely, yes.
how to discover. So why has teaching jazz mattered so much to you, Sheila?
Because I am under the impression, and have been for many, many years, that jazz has never been accepted the way it should be. I call it the stepchild of American music. All of these programs that come on that give awards to music awards, they never mention jazz. It's rock, country, blues, and rap. Never a word about jazz. And that was just recently. In fact, Michelle Obama, who I love, came on as a surprise guest on, I think it was the Grammys. And she said, it's an honor to be here to honor American music. And she named every music except jazz.
No kidding.
Every music. And to tell you the truth, jazz is the original music is of America. I call it the stepchild of American music because it's never been accepted or touted the way it should be. And it really, it pains me. So in so doing, I'm going to do more and more and more and more than I'm going to do as much as I can to keep jazz music alive. So that's my purpose, to answer your question. I must keep this music alive. And one day there will be a singer who will come out, I'm sure, and be very original, singing jazz, and will be accepted and will become like a big star and known for jazz, hopefully. So that's what I'm hoping for. But it's okay because even when I feel that we're not being accepted, the music is not being accepted because what I sing about when I sing jazz, it's my life, it's my story, it's how things that have happened to me, how I grew up. It's all in that song, you know. I don't try to sound like anybody else because I couldn't. I wouldn't know how, you know. So I want the kids to know that this is a wonderful music and don't be afraid of it. You know, I had one woman come up to me not too long ago after a concert, and she said, I was so moved by your ballads, by your music, especially your ballads. They really touched my heart. And I know nothing about jazz because I don't have a degree in music. And I said, "Oh, you think you need a degree?" I said, no, let me reword this. This is what I think you mean, that you have to have go to college and get a degree, right?" And she said, "Oh, yes, yes." I said, "No, let me tell you something. Do you know how this music started? It started with the African people being brought over to this country against their will, or the African people in this country against their will, either being from this country or from another country, but originally from Africa, being brought here and thrown into the cotton fields to work for nothing, to work endless, unbelievable hours with very little sleep, very little food, and no money. And they were thrown as slaves into the cotton fields. Do you know how they got by? And she said, no. I said, they got by because they were singing the blues. They sang the blues. And she was like, oh, so I don't know where that came from. I knew about it, but I don't know how I decided to tell her this. It just came out of my mouth because I love this music so much, and I never take it for granted, and I know where I got it from. And I was able to sing it because I knew that all of the people who suffered and struggled to do this music, I could identify with, because my childhood and my upbringing was very painful and not nice at all. So how did I do it? I sang the blues.
Wow.
Sang jazz. So there you go. I heard Charlie Parker at 14 years old. Now's the time. Charlie Parker and his reboppers, not beboppers, reboppers. Somebody gave me that. Oh no, it was in a jukebox across the street from my high school, and I put a nickel in because I saw it and I said, "Oh, I wonder what that is." But I was singing. I'd been singing since I was 3 years old. I was very unhappy and my life was terrible, so I felt better when I sang. So I sang all the time. My grandfather, in fact, called me Little Song because I was always singing. But anyway, getting back to that, I put my nickel in and I heard four notes and I said, oh my God, what is that? I'll dedicate my life to that, whether I sing it, teach it, or just support it. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what it is for me. It's part of my life. It's like part of my body. It's like part of my heart and soul. That's what jazz music is to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful, just beautiful.
Did I go on too long?
No, no, are you kidding? You can go on as long as you want.
I didn't give you a chance to say anything there.
No, it's you. This is all about you, darling. This isn't have anything to do with me. Um, I I just feel like, so beautiful, you saying to her, uh, telling her, like, for her to have this, a lot of people do, they think, oh, jazz is intellectual, or jazz is this or that. And for you to be able to, really ground it in, hey, this music came from pain and sorrow.
Yes.
And I know all about that. You know about that. And that's what it's the emotional connection, right?
Yes. Yes. And I also know that whole prejudice thing as far as race or whatever, because my family, my grandfather raised me until I was 14 because my mother was only 17 when she had me. And I really didn't know my father that well. I mean, he married my mother to give me a name. That's what you did in those days. But he was actually Canadian.
So he wasn't really a presence in your life then, was he?
No, never. I would say I could count the times on my one hand when I saw him, and he never really supported me in any way financially or clothing or whatever you give to help support the kid.
Was that like a void for you? Was that something that troubled you at all?
Well, I had my grandfather who was took over as my father, so as one from the time I was very young, they raised me until I was 14, because as I said, my mother was so young. But uh, I was always singing, because my grandfather had the serious problem of alcoholism. And, it was, you know, it wasn't an easy life. We didn't have heat in our house. A lot of times we didn't have food, and but the thing that that being the poorest family in town and being Native American, uh, the people in that little town knew that, and they used to call us half breeds.
Oh, that's terrible.
So I know that whole feeling of the prejudice, even though my skin is white. I know the painful the pain that I went through and the painful experiences I went through because of being in a town, in a small town, and being from native background. Can you believe that? And the wild thing is that it was the natives that owned this land. They owned this country. You know, before
Yeah.
Columbus came and stole it from them and killed my ancestors, you know, they owned this country. Uh, and how the alcohol started was George Washington gave my grandmother, you know, my fifth generation grandmother, who was Queen Aliquippa of the Seneca Nation. He she wanted to meet him. He went to meet her and he took her a bottle of rum. She'd never had alcohol in her life.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
geez.
yeah, yeah. And I guess she liked it because we took off. But they named it, she was a very strong woman, and they named the town in Pennsylvania after her. Aliquippa, Pennsylvania was named after my grandmother, Queen Aliquippa. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But all I'm saying is
That's
at the
wonderful. The
time,
alcohol part of it isn't so wonderful, but
yeah.
yeah,
All I'm saying is that I can identify with that feeling of being having, you know, this prejudice and hate and, you know, being put down. I can remember that. So even though my skin is white, I can certainly identify with the Africans real strongly. So hopefully it'll get better. It's getting better. It's not great yet, but it's getting better than it was, you know. And of
uh,
course, Detroit was a hotbed of racial prejudice. So that was hard for me growing up in Detroit because I wanted to be around this music. And I remember my principal in high school called me in because all my friends were African. All my girlfriends were African.
mm,
And she called me in. The principal of the high school, she said, "You dress so nice. Why do you hang out with colored girls?"
oh, geez.
And you know what I said to her? I don't know where it came from. I said, "Colored? Colored? Colored girls? You mean purple, pink, orange, yellow, red?" She got so angry with me
I
because
bet.
out of somewhere, you know, she knew that I was like letting her know, you know, you're full of shit, lady. And she said, "Come on, get out." Oh, yeah. And that was the principal.
That was the principal.
That was the principal that, like, she had that racial hatred going on, too. And she was the principal of high school. Why do I hang out with colored girls? I didn't know they were colored. What color? What are you talking about? You know? And I let her have it. I don't know where it came from, but I always got pulled out of these things. It was the same thing. I remember one time I was going with Frank Foster, this was years later, in Detroit. I'm just talking about the racial prejudice. And we were on a picnic at Belle Isle. And the cops came and saw us. And they saw me and my friend. And we were with these two men who were African. They took us down to the police station. They didn't take the guys in, but they took me in. And there was a cop, and he was questioning me. He said, "I'm going to tell you something." He said, "The way I found you tonight, I'm going to call your mother." I said, "Go ahead if you can find her." I said, I live on my own. I support myself, you know. I go to school half a day and I work half a day, you know. And I live at the Evangeline home, which is a place for young women to live. They get their food and board and everything, and then they can finish their school if there's problems. at home, which I'd had. And he said, but he said this to me, even after he knew all that I was on my own and supporting myself. He said, I got a 9-year-old daughter, and you see this gun? And he brought it up and threw it on the desk. He said, if I thought I would find her the way I found you tonight with that, and then he used the N word, which I never used. With that N, I would take this gun and go home and blow her brains out.
Holy moly.
So I'm just saying, can you imagine the hatred? I mean, so I know all about this racial prejudice bullshit, and it's pretty sickening, and it's very upsetting, and I want it to be over. Yeah, Black Lives Matter, you know, and so do white lives matter who care about Black lives, you know.
Yeah, beautiful, Sheila. I'd like to just say to your, you know, to your profound relationship and again, the pioneering relationship with the bass, your work with the bass. And
yeah.
You know,
oh, well, yeah. You want me to talk about that?
Okay.
The bass and voice, I was working at a little club in the village. This was, of course, after my daughter was born. I had a gig there a couple of nights.
Cage 3, was that the club you were working at?
3, that's correct.
Okay.
And I got a gig down there, and they called me a new note in jazz. I made $6 a night.
Amazing.
I didn't care. Because I was working in an office.
And you make $6.50 now, right?
Well, I was working in an office, and I was making my money to pay my rent and my, you know, everything from that job. But the gig, the 2 nights a week in the club in the village, was just so I could sing, because I love it. You know, I had to keep my music alive. And the bass player at that time was Steve Swallow. He was very young, and he was playing acoustic bass, not electric bass.
Okay.
And the piano player, you know, was John Knapp, and this was session night, because Monday nights was session night, Tuesday night was just, you know, regular night. They had like a lot of different acts all together. They switch around. They would have like a comedian, a stripper, a dancer, a blues singer, and then me, a new note in jazz. And, you know, they would switch it around. But I had 2 nights down there, and Monday night, Steve Swallow played acoustic bass. And he was very young. And the piano player was, there were so many wonderful piano players. I remember Herbie Nichols, a great piano player. I worked with him. He worked down there. But anyway, George Russell came in to hear Steve Swallow, because Steve, I think, might have been taking some lessons with George, or maybe it was the piano player. But anyway, one of them were studying with George Russell, and George came down, and he heard me. So after I was finished singing, and when the break happened, he came over to my table. I didn't know who George Russell was. And he said, where do you come from to sing like that? And I thought, who's this dude, you know? I said, I come from hell, man. He said, oh, you do? You come from hell to sing like that. Okay, that makes sense. He said, could I visit hell with you someday?
Wow.
And I thought, oh, this guy's putting me on. I said, but okay, I'll go along with it. I said, yeah, you could yes, you could. So he took my number and everything, and he called me because he just lived on Jane Street, not that far from where I lived, where I still live on 18th Street and 8th Avenue. I still have my apartment there.
And it's a beautiful apartment. I love your apartment.
Oh, it's nice, yes. And he said, so he called me up, and he said, do you want to visit hell? And my grandmother was still alive. And I said, yeah, okay. So I got my best friend at that time to take care of my daughter, because she was quite young. And I went back to Pennsylvania. And George met my grandmother, and my grandmother loved to drink. By this time, she was also into alcohol. And there's this private club that only coal miners could go to. In other words, you had to be a friend or a coal miner to get into this club,
Okay.
especially on a Sunday, because at that time they didn't sell alcohol in Pennsylvania on Sundays, and the
Okay.
bars were all closed on Sundays.
I wish it was still that way.
Yeah, it would be nice. So we
Yeah.
went up to the club, and of course, my grandmother got in because everybody knew her there, and there were no miners in there. They were all out of work, so they weren't in the bar because they didn't have any money to spend on booze and hanging out. But there was one coal miner in there, so he was sitting at the bar. So my grandmother introduced us and started bragging about us being famous. And I said, Mom, to my grandmother, I said, Mom, I'm not famous. George Russell is famous, but I'm not. I mean, I was just working in this little club, the Page Three, a couple of nights, and then working in an office all day, trying to raise my kid. And but the miner looked at me and he said, Well, do you still sing You Are My Sunshine, Jeannie? Because my nickname was Jeannie. Because Sheila, everybody laughed at it, made fun of it, because it wasn't very common in those days.
Oh, really?
And my middle name was Jeanette, so I started going by Jeannie. Except for school, then they had to call me by my Sheila. They had to call me by my uh, real name. But I went by Jeannie when I wasn't in school. So, wow, do you still sing You Are My Sunshine, Jeannie? I said, No, I don't sing that. And I thought, well, that's weird. What is he saying? Yeah, that was when I was a kid. I don't sing Sunshine anymore. And I said, no, I don't sing that. And he said, why not? And so George Russell said, yeah, why not? And I looked at him. I thought, oh, what is he kidding? So I went over, and there was this old, out of tune, really out of tune, upright piano in the corner. So George sat down and started playing all of this, but it was incredible. But my grandmother pushed him off the bench. She said, That's not the way it goes.
Wow.
And so she started to play it, You Are My Sunshine. And I sang with her. I sang
Mm.
with her. We came back to New York, and I don't know, it wasn't that much longer. George called me up on the phone. He said, Are you free? And I said, Yeah, I'm free until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock when I have to pick my daughter up at nursery school. He said, Can you stop by on your way to picking your daughter up? But come by a little early. Give yourself about an hour. I said, Okay. So I went by George's, who was on James Street, as I said, which is not too far from where I live on 18th because it's in the village. So I walked down there and I went to George's and I went inside and he said, Sit down in the chair over there. I said, Okay. So he sat down. He said, I want you to hear something. So he sat down at the piano and he played this, incredible music. And then he stopped and he said, Okay, sing. I said, Sing what? He said, Sing You Are My Sunshine. I said, Oh, what? Yeah, oh, okay. Are you going to play for me? He said, No, no, no. I don't want you, no, I want you to sing it alone. I said, Sing it alone? Well, he said, Yeah, you sang alone when you were a kid, so sing alone now. So I had to sing without any accompaniment. And I started to sing You Are My Sunshine. So not too much, it wasn't too much later. He called me up on the phone. He said, I'm up at the river doing a recording at Riverside for Riverside Records. I want you to come up. Can you come up? But he didn't say why. And I said, okay. Again, my daughter was in nursery school and I was free. So I went up. He said, okay, go in that booth. I said, why? He said, go in the booth. I said, what are you going to do? He said, just go in the booth. So I went in the booth. And he started playing this incredible, and then he stopped. He said, okay, sing. I said, sing what? He said, sing You Are My Sunshine like you did when you were a kid. I said, really? And he said, yes. So I sang You Are My Sunshine. It was the first time anybody had ever sang anything in jazz without accompaniment. And it was a dedication to the out-of-work coal miners of Pennsylvania. We wanted to, I should say, he wanted to rename it a drinking song because of the coal miners drinking on their day off, and
Yeah.
but they wouldn't let him change the title. So we kept it as You Are My Sunshine. You can still hear it on YouTube.
I know you can still hear it. It's a spine tingling
Yeah.
recording. So so
And
what
so then,
so
then from
yeah,
that, he uh, he called me up. He said, I want you to do, I want you to do a little demo." So he got Barry Galbraith on guitar, Steve Swallow on acoustic bass, and Denzel Best on drums.
okay.
And he picked them, and I said, "Guitar? I don't sing with just guitar. I sing with piano." He said, "Well, you're going to sing with guitar now." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes." And I think it was the first time that a jazz singer recorded with a guitar trio. I think it was before Ella recorded with Joe Pass. I'm sure. This was in 1962. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. And so I didn't really feel like singing with guitar. I wanted a piano, but George said, "Trust me." So I did, and then that was the first recording of Blue Note, on Blue Note, for Portrait of Sheila was the name of it, and they had never recorded a singer before. But George had taken that demo by, and they liked it. Francis Wolff, and, well, of course, Alfred Lyon, who was like the head of they were great guys, and I was honored, so
Yeah, of
that's
course. And
cool.
so that was the beginning of you then really throwing yourself
Yeah.
well, improvise
Sunshine and that, yes.
and okay. And so was it ever, did you feel on, like, it's such an intimate sound to be, like, did you ever feel vulnerable when,
No, actually, I've been doing a lot of things. Of course, it would upset the piano player, but I had been doing trying a lot of things. I'd tell the piano player to lay out because I wanted to just work with Steve Swallow, the bass and voice. And so when George approached me about doing this recording, I said, "Well, could I just do it?" Well, actually asked Alfred Lyon. I said, "Could I do just bass and voice?" He said, "No, I don't think we're ready for that." He said, "You can do a tune or two, but no." And I said, "Oh, okay." But I was ready to do the bass and voice then. And then, of course, I did That Dare without just Steve and I. And I think I did the verse to Am I Blue with just bass and voice on that recording. But they wouldn't let me do just bass and voice. But I started doing a lot of concerts then with just bass and voice. Any place I could get a gig, that when they'd call me for a gig, I'd say, "Can I do the bass and voice?" And most of the times they were cool. They say, "We don't care as long as you sing your tunes."
beautiful.
Yeah,
Do you,
that
you
was
know,
a long time ago too. That was in the early '50s.
yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Gosh, this is the thing is there's just so much that I want to talk to you about. You are very open and about your inspirational story of overcoming alcohol and drug addiction.
of course.
Yeah, and
Yes, I
so
can. Okay.
I'd like to talk about that, and in particular your signature song. A profound anthem of liberation, "The Crossing,"
Yes.
which I first heard just as an aside. I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago, at the Jazz Cellar in Vancouver.
Uh-huh.
That's Corey Weed's Jazz Cellar. Remember, you were there with Cameron. And,
Cameron. Yes.
and that was actually the day that we met, because that was at a workshop at, I can't remember
Yes.
where. But the thing
Yeah,
I remember when you sang that song, Sheila, that was a life-changing moment for me. And
really.
yeah, it
Yeah.
really was.
Okay.
And it was as if, you know how in the movies, in the movies, um, when somebody falls in love with somebody else,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're in and it's all 10,000 people are all around, but all of a sudden it changes, and those two, all it is those two people. That's all you experience, and everybody else disappears.
Yeah.
Well, for me, that's exactly what happened. It was
Ah,
you and me and the whole world of it was like all your ancestors, and I felt like Charlie was there.
oh, yeah.
I felt like all the people you're connected to
Wow.
channeled
Thank
them
you.
through that song. So
Yeah, well,
anyway,
thank you.
oh
I'm
no,
sorry that bird wasn't alive to hear that song. Cause I wrote it as I said. When I knew Bird, I didn't drink or take any kind of. Well, I was never a marijuana smoker because I didn't like marijuana. But I was trying snorting some cocaine. I never shot up drugs. I never took heroin, but I did use cocaine, and I did use, and I was an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I've been in program now for 34 years. Of course, I haven't drank in more than that. I tried to do it on my own, but I decided that program would help me, and that's what I did. I went into a special program, which I can't advertise, but
right,
you
right.
know, but the point was is that I had a spiritual awakening, and
Oh,
I was on my couch in my living room in the apartment I'm in now, actually. And I was not drinking. I was on a dry drunk because I hadn't drunk in 8 years on my own. But I was snorting cocaine here and there. And a voice came to me and said, "I gave you a spiritual voice. I'll never forget it as long as I live." And I was just sort of sitting back, kind of like high and sort of like, out a little bit. And it said, "I gave you a gift, and if you don't take care of it, I'm going to take it away from you and give it to somebody else." And I jumped up. I said, "Oh my God, where did that voice come from?" It scared the hell out of me. And it was my higher power talking to me saying, "Stop. Stop doing that. You're going to kill yourself, and you're going to ruin this gift I gave you to give to your brothers and sisters all over the world." I went to the telephone and I called up this organization, and the woman said to me, I'll never forget it. She said, "Why?" I told her I'd been on a dry drunk on my own for 8 years. She said to me, "Why would you want to do it on your own when we're here to help you? Why would you want to try to do all this on your own? You're only going to slip into another form of addiction."
right.
And I said, "Oh my God, yes, of course." And from that day on, I started going to for help, and I've been going to my wonderful meetings ever since.
Beautiful. And did that song, did the crossing, was that
And I wrote that, and I wrote the
wrote that
crossing.
song?
It wasn't too long after I started going to my meetings and realizing what a serious problem this was for everybody who has it, and what it meant to me to get sober the right way. And I wrote the crossing. And I'm going to tell you something, Christy. It came to me like that. Boom, boom. The melody, it was almost like I'm speaking to you. It was like unbelievable. And I sang it for Cameron, and I think it was Cameron, and we worked on the melody. Boom, boom. He made me a lead sheet, and I sing it at the end of every concert. I sing the crossing. It's my
It's your signature song.
Yes, and I usually do it as an encore.
Yeah.
And I talk a little bit about, the problem and how it came about that I wrote The Crossing. I don't go into detail because I have to respect the organization that got me sober, and they don't like you to advertise.
Yeah.
They
No.
want people to find out about what the program is on their own.
Right.
And so I don't tell my audience. I just say, I say that I had a problem with alcohol, and I found an organization that has kept me sober for the last 30, 40 years. And then I say, and I wrote the song, The Crossing, and I sing The Crossing.
Yeah, that's huge. That's
Yeah,
huge. What would you say? Thank you for sharing that. It's like because I have alcoholism in my family background as
yeah,
well, and I know that we've talked about that.
yes,
Thank God for that organization. It certainly helped my
yeah,
certainly
yeah,
helped my own mother and our
yeah.
family. What would you say to a young person, Sheila, or anyone that is struggling right now to self-destruct? Because you talk about, don't just self-destruct in the song. What would you?
Well, you mean who's out there using, thinking? You get the impression when this happens, when you're insecure, you start thinking, if I drink or I take drugs, I'll be better. And that's not true. What happens is you'll lose this beautiful gift you were given. And a lot of it has to do with, self doubt, insecurity, the whole trip. Don't go there. Be careful. You're not going to sound better if you drink too much, or if you shoot up drugs, or you snort drugs, or you smoke drugs. You're not going to sound any better. You might think you sound better, but in essence, you sound worse. You know, and it's a cunning, baffling, powerful disease. It
Mhm.
truly is,
Yeah.
and that is one of the prime examples is thinking you are going to be better when in fact it's only going to make it worse. So don't destroy a beautiful gift you've been given. And that's what I tell all my young students or old students. Doesn't matter. I'm not talking about age here.
Yeah.
Uh, you're never too old to want to do something that you've loved all your life. Sometimes older people say, well, I'm too old now, but I love it, and I really feel that I'm lost, and I'm so unhappy that I can't do it anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't? Of course you can do it. Stop. Go do it. That's what my workshops are. I don't care how old you are. I wouldn't care if 100-year-old woman came in there and wanted to, or man or woman, and wanted to sing. Well, of course I'd take you in a minute, in a heartbeat. Never
I,
too old.
that was my experience with you. Many for the many uh, workshops, jazz camps that interplay jazz and arts with Fred Haas and Sabrina.
Uh-huh.
I was just watch being able to be taught by you there amongst, but the, I was so impressed, not just impressed, I was so moved with how any level any singer was at, because there was beginner singers there as well as
Oh, yes. Yeah.
accomplished. So I really honor that about you, Sheila, how
Oh, thank you.
you're able to really, wherever anybody's at, you just focus on drawing and encouraging them in
Yes.
a way that I know that you were encouraged by Charlie Bird,
Bird.
by your Lenny Tristano. Um,
I studied with Lenny. Yes, thank God. Thanks to Max Roach and Charlie Mingus. I was looking for a teacher. This is before my daughter was born, and they they told me about Lenny. You know, I have. I remember my first lesson with Lenny was, okay, I want you to learn this tune, and it was Now's the Time, and I said I know it, and he said, well,
can you
sing it.
sing us a couple of just sing, because some people don't know now is the time.
Now the Now's the time to wail, not later, but right now's the time. Now is the time. So that was now's the time. So he put it on, and I said, I know it.
The time.
Yeah. So I sang it. He said, oh, yeah, you do know it. He said, okay, then your lesson is Lester Young. Lester leaps in. I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know Prez. I don't know anything of his. Because, I went right to Bird. Bird was my idol. Not to say that Prez wasn't a great saxophone player or a great musician. I was just like I was a Bird freak. So, and Lenny gave me a lot of encouragement about singing, doing my thing, not trying to sing like somebody else, but learning the tune the way it was written, which is what I teach now.
Yeah.
Learn the tune exactly the way it's written. Don't try to imitate somebody else. Imitate you. Sing your life. Don't sing somebody else's life. Sing about yourself. So I learned that with Lenny. Lenny was great. And, I'm very grateful that I found all that out, It was a wonderful experience. So all of the things that I've been through and all of the learnings that I've had, I wasn't supporting myself, so I didn't have to just sing any kind of thing. I could do only the kind of music I wanted to do because I had an office job. So I'm saying that because a lot of singers feel that they need to be singing and support themselves through their singing or whatever, playing their instrument or whatever, and they'll play anything. I was of the impression, and still am to this day, that I will support the music until it can support me. And it might never support me, but I'm not going to give it up.
Right.
I will support it until it can support me. And that's what I've been doing.
To me, that's a life lesson. I've taken to heart several of your life lessons, but other people don't know your life lessons in the sense of like, just do it,
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
That's one of your life lessons, is that regardless of how discouraged you are, and regardless of how, what adversities are in the business or
Yeah.
how would you succinctly put together some of your fundamental messages and what I call life lessons?
My thing is this, Christy, I always say at the end of all of my workshops or lessons, the end of my lessons, first of all, I'm always encouraging because I don't want them to give up. And that's what I say at the end. Don't give up. Keep singing. Don't give up something you love. Why would you do that? That's like giving up a child. Would you give up your kid, man? Well, this music is part of your life. You love it? Do you really love it? And of course, they say yes. I say, then you don't give it up. You support it until it can support you. Even if it never supports you, it will give you something that you're not going to find out there. You're going to find it through the music. The minute you open your mouth, regardless of whether you're singing or blowing a horn or piano or another instrument or whatever, just don't give up. That's my message. Keep doing it. This gift was given to you. Obviously, you've been given a special gift.
Yeah.
Why would you want to throw it away? Don't throw it away. Keep it. Work on it.
And here you are, you are, phenomenally. Okay, so right now, of course, your tours and everything has come to a standstill.
Yeah, with the pandemic, yes.
But you haven't given up, and you
Yeah.
are continuing to. I know once who knows how this is all going to play out, but
Right.
you are an inspiration in that regard. That not only have you been touring and gigging and teaching internationally now since your 50s, since you left your job and went into music full time, and you are, I mean, personally, you are, when I said, you are my constant, like people say to me, oh, like I'm in my 60s now, right? So it's like, but I feel I'm like, you're my model for, I'm just begun, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
like, right?
That's great. Yes, you have this begun. Well, the thing with me is that I worked until I was 62 years old. And at that time, at 62, you could get Social Security.
Right.
So at 62, it was weird. The advertising company that I worked for was great. Doyle Dane Bernbach. They did a lot of jazz, not a lot, but they did some jazz commercials. And every time they had a jazz commercial, they'd call me up to sing it.
Oh, lucky.
It was great. Yeah, it was great. It was extra money, and it was just, it was nice. But anyway, getting back to that, uh, I knew that at 62, I was going to collect Social Security, and the company was expanding, and they said that I would not have the job that I'd had all those years with them, that they were expanding, and that I might be going from different offices every day, that I had two possibilities. I could either choose to stay on and do that, going to different offices, or they would give me a year's pay. That was besides my Social Security that I would be able to collect. But they would give me a year's pay. And the little voice, and that little voice that said, "Take the money. You're always complaining about not singing, so take the money and go and sing, and don't even think about it." And I said, "Oh, I'll take the money. I'll take the year's pay," and that's what happened. And I'm glad I did, because I've been doing the music ever since, and I have my workshops. I do three major workshops in the summer. Well, not this year, but when I'm doing them.
Right.
Jazz in July for 2 weeks, the Vermont Jazz Center, and
Right.
the one in Woodstock with Sabine. Is it Sabina? Yeah, Sabina and Fred Haas, who's great. What a great player. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And all the other great musicians there.
So that's it, and I'm able to, with my Social Security, which isn't much, but hey, it pays my rent, man.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm okay. I'm not, I gotta say, I'm okay, and it's getting better and better and better. So, and I need. Dina DeRose just did a new recording, and I was a guest on her recording. I've been a guest on a lot of singers' recordings now. They want me to come on their recording and do a few tunes, which is great, which I love to do. So I've been doing that. But I really need to go into the studio and make one last recording before I pass on. And I keep putting it off, but I really, really have to do that. So, High Note said they said they would love to do it, that they would do it. So I don't know. I'll see. I'll do the recording. I'll pay for it, and then I'll send it to different companies and see what they say.
Beautiful, Sheila. So we're going to be drawing to the close shortly. I just wanted to ask you about, here we are in the middle of a pandemic. You're in upstate New York. I'm on Bowen Island. So very different situations and whatnot. How have you been? How have you been taking care of yourself during this transition of of not having as much gigs and whatnot? I know you were saying that you've had 9-10 interviews this month, so that's pretty intense.
Yeah, I've been busy with interviews, and I'm honored, to do them and to talk. Most of them have been about Bird, because I was close with Bird.
Yeah, and I'd like to finish with that, but I'm just wondering about your own self-care, because because this is a time to really, obviously to keep our immune systems healthy, and as we sing, the vagus nerve is stimulated, and our endorphins go up. It's like, so are you keeping, how is your music playing a part of your COVID
Well,
time?
well, I'm not singing. No, I really haven't been singing at all.
Uh-huh.
But I'm just trying not to get in a fit of depression over all of this. I'm
Right.
trying to keep like a good attitude, a healthy attitude about what's happening, and this isn't going to be forever. And hey, it's a vacation, it's a rest. So I'm having a rest, man. I mean, it's fantastic. I don't have to get up in the morning early. I can sleep all day if I want to. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
at my house. I have a lot of things that I have to do around here. And of course, I keep putting them off because I've been sleeping a lot. But I have a lot of things around that, like, like cleaning out the garage and washing it down and different little things like that. And I'm okay. Eventually, I will be hopefully learning some new music. I have some songs that I want to try, and I want to see if do I really like them, and and see and think about doing this recording. I call it my last recording because I feel 90. I'll be 92. At least I'll be at least 92 before it happens. And
Right.
I don't know. Who knows how many years I have left after that? But I know that I have enough in me to do one more recording. And
Well,
uh, and I'll keep being a guest with whoever calls me to do a tune with them. Like Gina DeRose called me. I did a couple of tunes on her recording, which got wonderful. Well, she got wonderful reviews. She's a wonderful piano player, and
I
she's
wish I was
known
recording
for.
so that I wish I was recording, Sheila, so that I could invite you on to.
Well, if you decide you need Corey, call me.
Okay. Yeah, I
Serious.
definitely will. I definitely will. Seeing as it is Charlie's on the 29th of August, correct? It's
Centennial, yeah, he'll be 100 years old.
100 years old. He would have been 100 years old. And so I just think I would love it if you would, take us out, so to speak, with one of your favorite stories of you and Charlie, and whatever you want to do, whether you want to talk about
Okay,
origins
I
of when
can
you
do
met.
that. I can do that. Bird was my hero,
I
and
know.
he was very encouraging. And oh my God, I wish I would have had recordings when Duke, when I was married to Duke. Of course, Duke was his piano player, so I would go to a lot of these gigs and a lot of these cocktail sips, they called them, where the women would give these cocktail sips, their organization, and they'd have food and everything, and they'd hire a lot of times Charlie Parker to play for them, and then so that they could dance. And I remember I used to sing at a Bird would ask me to get up and sing a song or two, and Duke was there playing, so it was great. I wrote a song for Charlie Parker called "The Bird," and I was encouraged to write it after seeing the movie "The Bird"
Hmm.
that Clint Eastwood. I don't know what I think he called it "The Bird." So I was encouraged to write this after seeing that movie, and the lyrics will tell you why, what happened. You know, it'll tell you about my feeling about Charlie Parker, how he saved my life, which he did. He's the reason I sing, and what that movie said to me. But the ending is funny, but true. And then I went into that. From that, I went into, because it's the same chord changes, and the chord changes for both the tunes are based on Embraceable You. So from that, I went into my favorite Charlie Parker head, which was Quasimodo.
Ah.
So it goes from the bird into Quasimodo. But I don't know if there's enough time to sing
Okay,
Quasimodo.
there's enough time. There's
Okay.
definitely enough time. Please, please.
Okay, so the first tune is the thing that I wrote called The Bird. Okay, so I hope I can sing this without messing it up. I'll try. If I mess it up, I'll stop and start again, okay? And I don't even know the key. I'm not near the piano, so.
Okay.
The bird, the bird, the bird, the bird. Charlie Parker was his name. Bird, 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 bird. The bird, the bird. You heard it every day. The bird would have his way. So they made a movie about Charlie Parker, and they called it Bird. Oh yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Clint Eastwood, for making my day by letting Charlie Parker play. But what happened to Roy Haynes? What about Tommy Potter, Miles Davis, and my ex-husband, Ed Jordan? Well, Mr. Eastwood, that's okay. I don't get alimony anyway. But no one could ever really play like Charlie Parker played. Because Charlie Parker was his name. And bebop music was his fame. So that's the thing, it's called The Bird. At times I wonder where my life would be if I never heard the music of birds. Back when I was just a kid, I listened to each precious note floating out of his horn so many years ago. What a treat it used to be for me to hear him, the thrill of being near him. I live for every song that he played from his heart. Bird brought a special world to me. I believed in the way I'd learned to live my life from the dues that he paid. He turned me on to sounds I never heard before by putting all those magical tones into each and every phrase. Somehow I find it rather strange knowing that there are those of us who really love him. Well, so many aren't even aware of his name. I feel blessed that I grew up spending all of those wonderful years surrounded by the joy that he gave. There's nothing in life that will ever have the meaning for me or can give me the thrill like hearing Charlie Parker.
Oh,
So that's too embraceable. Embrace me. My sweet embraceable you, it's too embraceable you chord changes. And the
wow.
bird is the same.
Beautiful, Sheila. Thank you so
Ah,
much. It's amazing.
it
And
is what it was. It was a story. But
yeah,
it's true. Because that's really how I felt when I wrote The Bird. I felt about Clint Eastwood. Why didn't he include other, he had Bird, but he didn't put in some of the really, like Roy Haynes. My God, Roy Haynes was his drummer. I mean, he did Max Roach, so that was good. But, but it was good that he did it. I'm glad he did it. It was great.
yeah, I'm really glad too. And thank you for sharing that song and for sharing all of the things that you've shared with me and everybody who's going to tune into this later. So
Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today.
Yes, thank
Um,
you, everybody.
yeah, for joining us today. And if you wish to know more about Sheila or reserve her for, are you teaching private lessons, Sheila?
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
If you want to reserve her for private lessons online, attend her future gigs, whenever that will be, or purchase her music or her inspirational book, Jazz Child.
Yeah, by Ellen Johnson, right.
Yeah, by Ellen Johnson, a wonderful, wonderful book, must read book.
Thank you.
Go to SheilaJordan.com, or you can find her on her incredibly active Facebook page where she engages with everyone.
Yeah.
So that's where you can find Sheila. And to learn more about me or purchase my music on Bandcamp, you can go to christiegracemusic.com. I'd love to stay in touch with you, and so to do so, you just to sign up for my monthly newsletter, and you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Instagram under Christie Grace. And for more information on the transformational life coaching process, because I'm also a life coach, check out my website, christiegracecoaching.com, under programs like the 30-day Mindful Performer Boot Camp, or the Happy Gut 21 Day, or the 90-day transformational coaching. Performance anxiety, different things are covered in the performer boot camp. And I also have a monthly newsletter sign up. So when you sign up, you receive a free PDF on the art of the morning ritual, something that I'm very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under that name. So if you have, and then as a final thing, if you love handmade unique jewelry, you can also find ChristieGrace.com.
Yeah, that's right. You do that handmade jewelry. That's beautiful jewelry. Is that what you're wearing on your neck? Is that you made that?
I did. This is Island Goddess, one of my series of Island Goddess. And it's like, these are Baroque pearls, like South Sea pearl on driftwood, which is, so it's a piece of art.
Very unique, very beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, darling. So I hate to, I honestly, I could stay here with you all day, and
yeah, we gotta go.
We gotta go. So thank you again for everyone joining us, and until next time, stay healthy,
stay safe, and keep singing.
Keep singing.
There you go.
Huh.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you too.
Love you, really love you.
Bye-bye,
honey. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There are moments in your lifetime when the whole world seems insane. If you search beyond the madness, there is peace of mind to gain. Where there is no time or season, and there is no fear or strain. Take your troubles to the crossing. It's where joy outweighs the pain. Oh, the crossing, it's been known by many names. Some have found it through religion, putting faith in God each day. When the world seems lost and shattered, and your dreams have gone astray, never seek out self-distraction. There's a crossing that can help you find a way. Oh, the crossing, what a blessing it can be. When you're feeling down and lonely, there's an answer, there's a key. And for those of you who wonder what the crossing means to me, it's the love I have when I'm singing for you. Oh, the spirit of the music sets me